Men in the men's lounge, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Women, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
That was a puny, weak yes there, wasn't it? All right. Announcements. Thank y'all for coming to the world famous 3-part 12-step philosophy. I know a lot of people came from all over the world, paid a lot of money to come here. I feel honored for that. It's same thing. We're going to do the same thing tonight, Wednesday, and Thursday night. Around the 7 o'clock hour, as close as I get to it, around that time, we'll take a break. It'll be about a 10-minute break, and then come back. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate everybody being here. I really do. I'll tell you this, it is deeply an honor to get to do this and be a part of what you guys are trying to do, and it's an honor I don't take lightly, and I'm very, very proud to be a part of what you're doing here. So let's make some preliminary announcements. If you have to, get up and go to the bathroom. Of course, get up and go to the bathroom. Other than that, try to be disruptive as little as possible. You're going to get a lot of information tonight. I will challenge you. I will challenge you. Know that. I will tell you when you're being challenged. Please take a note of that. That's something that's very important. So it stands out a little bit more than the rest of the lot of the information. You've got handouts on the promises and the 12 steps. I will refer to them often. Please keep those handouts kind of where you can get to them in your PowerPoint. And I guess I should say that did everybody get the PowerPoint presentation and the handouts in the back? You guys in the men's lounge and the women's lounge, I hope you got enough. So let's wait until we get this done and we'll kind of get started.
It's like this.
Other than the blue PowerPoint handout that you got, the other 2 handouts you won't need again after tonight, but keep that part. And please look on the front of yours and make sure it says part 1.
Oh.
I hope part 2 and 3 didn't get mixed in with any of those. Okay. All right. Are we ready now to go? So let me make some announcements. I have to make some announcements to be fair and ethical here. First of all, I have to give credit to a couple of people. I don't know how many of y'all have ever been here before, and I mean before, like going back a couple of years, but there was a guy named Pete Hotchkiss that did this for years up here at Pavilion. And Pete Hotchkiss is a giant in as far as knowing the AA and the philosophy and knowing the steps. When I first came to work for Pavilion down in Greenville in 2009, I got to meet Pete, and it was just fascinating to hear him give me a new insight, shine a new light on get your hand out, on the 12 steps. When Pete retired about 2 years ago, and I just started coming up here part-time, they asked me to do this, and this was very daunting. To follow in the footsteps of Pete was scary, if you want to know the truth. So not a lot, but some of his stuff is in here. So I borrowed from him, and then I did the rest of the way that I understand it. It's not that I differentiate, not that I'm different from Pete, but it's just I come in from a different angle. So I had to give him credit for that. Also, I had to give my wife credit for these PowerPoint presentations. I am computer illiterate. I'm dumber than a post. When it comes to, I know how to get my email. I type with 2 fingers. I could put the PowerPoint in the slide, but as far as the coloring and all the nice little things that you might see, I have to give credit to my wife for that. She did that. Your RAs or your CD techs are what we call around here. I want to take this time to tell you guys that is a far more difficult job than you think it is. If you think that these CD techs, especially at night, are hounding you and following you and bird dogging you and wanting to know where you are, that's exactly what they're doing. Because by law, they have to know. By law, they have to know where everybody in this place is, and they have to know. And so it can be a thankless job. It can be a very difficult job. And so if you get a chance, I would ask that you please thank them because they do great work. for very personal reasons. They're trying to give back what they so freely have been given. So please, if you get a chance, thank them as you should. I will try to follow the schedule. Like I said, I will end around. We're going to end. We don't go over past 8 because I'm out of gas by that time. So we'll go up to at least 8. All right, this is the part where I'm supposed to tell you a little bit about me. This will be short because it ain't that damn interesting. But I'll tell you how I got here and how I evolved into this particular role. For a lot of reasons, just like y'all, in 1992, in September of 1992, I had to go into treatment in a 30-day facility in Charlotte, North Carolina, which isn't even there anymore. And I went in mean, I went in arrogant, I went in angry. I went in very childish, I went in very immature. I went in the day after my 40th birthday, and I made sure that a lot of people were going to find out how angry I was and how arrogant and entitled I was. And again, we all know what's behind all that. There's just nothing but childish fear and immaturity, and that's where I was at that time. I knew nothing about how this was done. I knew nothing about treatment. If I ever knew anybody had been to treatment, I didn't know who they were. I kind of figured it was like a car wash. You know, you can drive at the car wash and you sit there dirty and they drag you through and you come out on the other end clean. That's kind of figured what they was going to do to me. I was going to be, whatever it was they were going to do, but I'd come out on the other end clean. Now, but this is important, and you'll hear this several times during the course of this presentation. As entitled and as arrogant and as rude and disrespectful as I was, and I was, I had one thing that kept me alive. One burning desire. And when I say burning, I'm talking volcano burning. I did not want to drink again. There were no ifs, ands, and buts. There was no ambiguity about it. I did not want to drink again. I couldn't bear where drinking had taken me. I couldn't stand what it had turned me into. I didn't like anything about me. I considered myself totally irredeemable and unsavable, if you want to know the truth. There was no God in my life, no one interested in one. And I just wanted them, when I wrote them the check, I threw the check down, and I literally said, now you guys show me how not to drink. That's all I wanted. I didn't care about anything else. And that kept me going through some things. And I will tell you, during the course of this presentation the next 3 nights, there are going to be several personal stories. Some of them kind of stupid, but some of them not, but they all have some meaning. I just don't tell them just for entertainment meaning. So anyway, right before I was to leave my 30-day program clean and fit, my counselor came to me and he said, "You're sober, but you're not fixed." And I said, "What does that mean?" And he said, "Well, I'm recommending that you go to more treatment, down to a more longer stay." I thanked him for his input very rudely, and told him I appreciate it, but hell no, I ain't going, and you're an idiot for suggesting it. And but what bothered me more than anything was that why were they telling me that? Why were they saying I had to go somewhere else? Didn't they fix me in the 30 days? Am I that sick? And I spent that whole night sitting up in bed wondering, how sick am I? How sick am I? Because that frightened me a lot. And I remember I had a long talk with some of my family members, and we agreed, okay, I'll go down there. So I went down to Delray Beach, Florida for 3 months. I told everybody I was going to be down there 3 months in 1 second, because the second they discharged me, I was out of there, and I ended up spending 3 years down there. But that's another part of the story. So when I went down there for that stay, again, I was locked into the fact that I don't want to drink again. I don't want to drink again. Show me how I don't drink again. Show me what I got to do so I don't ever drink again. And they told me down there that this was 1992, and they, believe it or not, even though that doesn't sound that long ago, they didn't have a lot of the information we have now. They really don't. Since I've even been in this business, the knowledge and the breadth of knowledge that about what alcohol and drugs do, especially what they do to the brain, is just exponentially exploded. And they told me that AA would save my life and that I had a disease. Okay, if AA was going to save my life, what does that mean? How do I do that? And I have a disease, what does that mean? Nobody can tell me that. And that wasn't enough for me. I didn't want that. How was this thing called AA? Because they made us go to an AA meeting every single night. I'll tell you a story about that later. And so I sat there and I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know what it meant. How was this thing going to save my life? How was I going to do this? And that wasn't enough for me. And what does this disease mean? What do you mean? Why do I have a disease? That wasn't enough. So some of y'all might remember in towns and cities, they got these buildings that got a lot of books in them. They're called libraries. Y'all remember some of those things? Well, back then, that's all we had. So after I'd been there about a month and I had a little bit more free time, believe it or not, you have free time, you're down there 3 months, and I could even bring my car down, I started going to the library, and I did. And I studied, and I looked up, and I studied AA, the history of AA, the philosophy of AA. What do these steps mean? How's this thing going to save my life? And I studied why is it a disease? I did. I'm not making this up. I did that stuff. And I can't tell you why, and I don't expect y'all to have the same fascination I did with it, but it fascinated me. I was intrigued by that. And I found it utterly fascinating. So I really became a student of it. And as I did, and as I was going to more meetings around the area, I would talk, as y'all can imagine. Imagine that, me standing up and talking. And I never missed an opportunity to tell everybody how smart I was and how much I knew. Because, see, that was one thing I always carried. I wasn't as sick as the people I was in treatment with. I just wasn't. I wasn't as sick as them. They were pitiful, and I felt sorry for them. Yeah, I just wasn't as sick as them. And I was a hell of a lot smarter. And so I studied that stuff. And as I would go to a lot of meetings in the South Florida area, and I would talk and everything, people would ask me, where are you a counselor? Where do you not? I'm not a counselor. I hate counselors. Counselors are assholes. They're stupid. I don't like counselors. And I couldn't stand mine. And but it just got more and more fascinating, and I learned more and more about it. And I'm not rich, not independently wealthy. I had to have a job. So it started occurring to me, maybe I can be a counselor. Maybe this is where I'm supposed to be going. And so I started asking questions about that. And everybody said, well, if you're going to be a counselor in this thing, you got to have a master's degree. Well, I had an undergraduate degree from the Citadel, but I didn't want to, I'm not a student. I'm not that smart. I never was a student. And I didn't want to go back to school. How do you even go back to school? How do you even get a master's? So that's when, and this is my story, and I'm not trying to put it on anybody, that's when God really started stepping in. And one of our promises said that God will do, you will find that God will do for you what you cannot do for yourself. I could take the rest of this night telling you how the doors just flew open for me to get into the Citadel graduate school in their counseling department. Even though I wasn't qualified, I had to take a lot of tests. I had to have a lot of people go to bat for me that actually gave the dean of the school of that department great letters about me and everything. And I was led into the graduate program on a provincial, and I was told by the dean that meant that basically at any time they could kick me out, and they were prepared to do so. I was told that because I had graduated in 1974. This is 1995, and I had a horrible GPR when I graduated, and actually I was being done a favor. And I know that. I know that now. To get into the graduate school, I will tell you that I graduated with a 3.92. I made 1 B+ the entire time I was in graduate school, and I came out of there with honors, and I'm a member of 2 national honor fraternities, psychological honor fraternities. Why is that different? Well, when I went to the Citadel in 1970, I went on a football scholarship, and I was a triple major. I majored in 3 things. I majored in beer, football, and the nurses' college. And I spent a lot of time in those fields, and I think I did pretty good in those fields. But it wasn't my money. All I needed was just stay eligible to play football. When you go to graduate school on your dime, and it's your career, and it's the rest of your life, you'll study. You'll study, and I did that. And so that's how that happened. I got a job almost immediately working for Medical University Institute of Psychiatry because I knew somebody. And they were looking for somebody at that time, and I happened to be there. Again, coincidence? I don't think so. I worked there for 3 years, and then I was asked to come over and work for Charleston County, an all-female unit. And that's an interesting story, and I'll tell you, there's a couple of interesting stories about that. Hardcore street women, and I was asked to be a counselor there. I worked there for 11 years. In 2009, this pavilion, inpatient pavilion, was opening up a outpatient facility down in Greenville. That from ground zero, they had nothing from the phase one. I had been up here for other reasons, from other conferences, and I knew about the place. My wife actually found the application. I wasn't even looking to leave down there, but she's from Kentucky and she likes the mountains. And she said, she sent me an application for the outpatient. I immediately sent it back to her in the email and said, this is the wrong place. I don't understand. There's no pavilion in Greenville. This is only up here. There's only a place up in the mountains. I don't know what that place is. It's not the same place. She emailed me back, said, read it. They're opening up an outpatient program. And so just to get her off my back, I filled out the application, emailed it the next day. Pavilion down there in Greenville called me up for an interview just to get her and them off my back. I took a Friday off and brought my wife up here and got interviewed for the job, and they offered me the job during the interview. And I remember thinking, what have I done? How am I going to get out of this? But again, it was fascinating. It was just doors opening for me that I just didn't think could open. Because of family business, family concerns, my grandchildren, if you want to know the truth, my wife and I moved back to Charleston in 2014, worked a couple of years there, and then I semi-retired, and I called up here and I said I'd like to do some more work at Pavilion. I'm not fully retired. I love the business. If you want to know the truth, I love this business. I love this field. I love working with y'all, and they offered me a job up here. Okay, that's a long time to say a bunch of nothing other than if you have a dream, if your dream has purpose, if your dream gives you meaning, it means something to you, and you do what you're supposed to do, I will tell you that things will happen. Doors will open, people will come in your life that will help you. Just don't doubt me on that. But you got to have that dream, and you got to want that dream, and then you've got to be able to be in a position where you can step into that dream when the doors open. And I had a dream, and I've never looked back, and it's been fascinating ever since. So that is my story in a nutshell. As I go along, I ask that you ask questions. You offer comments. I am told that this might be being recorded. So please ask questions that have adult words in them, nice words in them, if you know what I mean. And I don't know. I honestly don't know if it's being recorded or not. And again, like I said, I will challenge you. Now, why am I challenging you? This disease thrives off our weaknesses. This disease picks out our weaknesses. It thrives off our weaknesses. It thrives off drama and chaos. We talked about that today in the relapse prevention thing. We offer the world our weaknesses, and we can't figure out why we're getting our butts kicked in every day. It flourishes off our weaknesses. If I challenge you to think, if I challenge you to change direction, if I challenge you to make make recovery the essential part of your life, if I can challenge you with that, while at the same time giving you information that will enlighten you and make you more powerful. We all know the old saying, knowledge is power. The more knowledge about this disease and these steps you have, the more powerful you become. So my challenges are not just for kicks and giggles. My challenges are there to challenge you, to ask you yourself questions. Do I really believe that? Does that work for me? Have I been thinking correctly all these years? Have I been thinking the wrong way? And I'm challenging to do that because that will make you more powerful. And that's why I'm doing that. With power becomes strength. So please note that with each challenge, I'm going to ask you to listen. I'm going to ask you to be open-minded. I'm going to ask you to be curious. And I'm also going to ask you to be enthusiastic about what you're getting ready to do. Because here's something maybe some of you haven't thought about. And I'm not looking for a show of hands. But if I could get everybody in here to be as honest as they can, I would imagine that everybody in this room are either silently or crying out loud or screaming out loud, prayed the famous alcoholic prayer, God help me. I don't know about y'all, but that was something I probably there toward the end, I probably said 1,000 times a day, God help me, God help me. Not having any idea how that help was going to come, who was going to bring it. I would suggest to you that if you prayed that prayer, you are living an answered prayer by being here. You are living an answered prayer by even being in the seat you're sitting in. You have been given an opportunity for help. If that doesn't make you enthusiastic, if that doesn't excite you, I don't know what can. So I ask you, along with the other things, be enthusiastic and also excited. All right. Any questions or comments before we move on? Lord, God help me. All right. The Eagle and the Wolf. I'd love to tell you I wrote this, but I didn't. I stole it. There's a bunch of stuff in this that I plagiarized, by the way. And so I can just tell you that right now. I ain't that smart. Okay, the Eagle and the Wolf. There's a great battle that rages inside of me. On one side of the battle is a soaring eagle. The eagle stands for everything that is sacred in me. She is true and she is magnificent and she is beautiful. She flies high above the clouds, untouchable in her power, unmatched in her gracefulness. The sun is warm on her back and the wind in her face is fresh and cool. She lives on the tops of the mountains and she fears nothing. She is free. On the other side of this battle is the howling, snarling, and evil wolf. It represents everything that is evil in me. It seeks to harm and it prowls to kill. The wolf roams in the night, hides and attacks. It brings with it fear and loneliness and the death of my true best self. It is a slave to its own cruelty. Who wins this great battle? The one I feed. The one I feed. Now, there's two very powerful messages in there to me that I want to share with you, and that's why I present this nice little thing. One is, I want you guys to know how powerful you are. I know some of you feel defeated. I know some of you feel weak emotionally, spiritually, and even physically. I know some of you have very looming, hard, dark doubts about yourself. I know some of you have very defeated ideas about yourself. I know because I sat in these chairs one time. I know all about that. I want you to know that in our first step, it mentions that you're powerless over your addiction. Now, some people will read that and they want to stop and say, oh, I'm powerless. No, you're powerless over your addiction. And guys, that's science. That's science. That's medicine. And that's a proven fact. You are powerless over the signs and symptoms of your addiction. And I'll go into that more a little bit in detail later. Never again does this program mention that you're powerless in any way. In fact, the entire rest of the program shows you how you can be even more powerful, infinitely more powerful, incredibly more powerful than right now some of you have the courage to even think about. But you are, and you are very powerful because you can set the climate. You can set the atmosphere. You can feel the way you want to feel. You can walk each day on your terms. Life and situations may put conditions on you, but nothing can put an attitude on you that you don't want to have. So you can be the eagle. You can be the eagle. The wolf's in there in all of us. We like if you read anything about Saint Augustine or Augustine, I don't know how you want to pronounce his name. He talks about that. We can be the sinner. We can be the saint. We can be the devil. We can be the angel. It's there in all of us. I say you can be the eagle at all times. So that's one thing I want you to hear, that you can be a healer. You can be a wonder. It's up to you. The next thing I want you to hear about this is something that I set you guys up for, if you remember, in relapse prevention this afternoon. Life has nothing to do, very little to do, almost nothing to do with what has happened to you. The only thing that matters, the only thing that will ever matter in life is how you respond to it. You can respond to life as an eagle. You can respond to life as a wolf. You can respond to life in ways that hurt you and people who love you, or you can respond to life in ways that shows that you respect yourself and you respect the people who love you. You can do that. Don't tell me you can't. That's why I want you to read this. That's why I want you to know this. Now, so I'm going to set this up with you now. Here's challenge. Maybe if you want to put the numbers, I don't know how many challenges I got. Maybe at the end of this, somebody can tell me. But here's challenge number 1. In many ways in life, we have responded to life and what has happened to us in ways that reduced us, demeaned us, belittled us, that showed our weaknesses, that showed our fears. We run and hid. A lot of my drinking was that I just was not equipped to handle anything that was going on around me. I thought people out there, my friends, I missed a class somewhere. They got a set of instructions on how to deal with life and stressors and all this stuff. I'm out there in the business world. I couldn't respond to anything. If something went south, I went south. If something went bad, I went bad. I didn't have skills, guys. I didn't have the tools. And I couldn't figure out why other people did and I didn't. So I responded to life in ways that just weren't very healthy, that just weren't very productive. They certainly weren't very character. They showed a very weak and a corrupt, in a lot of ways, a corrupt character. I'm telling you, don't do that anymore. I'm challenging you, don't do that anymore. So here's what I'm going to say. Here's your first challenge. We all know the rules. We all know the law. For every action, there's a reaction. Every time something happens around you, you're going to respond in some way. I don't know if you realize that, but you will respond in some way to big, very, very big things or to very, very small things. But you're going to respond. Before you utter a sound, before you move a muscle, here's my challenge to you. I want you to sit back quietly, and I want you to ask yourself very bravely, very honestly, what is the best I have that I can bring to this situation? What's the highest road I can take? What is the purest and best ideal that I can think of that I can show right now? This thing that I get ready to say, this thing that I'm getting ready to do, it will reflect on what kind of man or a woman I am. What is that going to say? What is that thing going to say? If the person I love the most were to hear what I'm getting ready to say or see what I'm getting ready to do, would I be okay with that? Tonight, when I do my inventory, my personal inventory, my 10th step that we're going to look at Thursday night, am I going to be okay with that? I want you to challenge yourself to bring out each and every response in a way that honors you, that shows you as a person of honor. You will like where that takes you. And the people around you are going to like who you are. And the more you like yourself, the more pride you have in yourself, the more self-respect you have in yourself, the more confidence you have in yourself, the more higher the self-esteem you're going to have in yourself, you will have fewer and fewer reasons and need for a mood-altering drug because you're going to like the mood you're already in. That's why we read this little thing here. That's what I want you to think about. So that's your first challenge. Second, go to that handout you got. What are your top 5? We're not going to take a long time on this. I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes, and maybe if you just want to do the top 3, but pick out in that list, what are the top 5, or maybe what are the top 3 attributes or strengths I'd like to have? And I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Bring a pen, bring a pencil, bring a highlighter. You come to class without a pencil, man. No wonder you failed college. No wonder they booted you out of college. It's not the PowerPoint. Okay. I don't want to rush because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. All right. I am not going around the room and ask people to read them to me. Maybe when you get back to your room tonight, you go ahead and just itemize this whole list because it's a pretty good list. Look at the ones you checked, or look at the ones you put 1, 2, 3 by, whatever it is, however you itemize them, or what am I trying to list them? Rank them. Thank you. I want you to ask 2 questions. Why can't I do this? What's stopping me from being that? What are the barriers to that? Are the barriers even real? For instance, I'll look at the top one there. Know the correct thing to do and say in all situations. Do you know how many times really in life you don't know the correct thing to do? Almost never. You almost always know what to do. What you need to do is the courage to do it. What's stopping me? I have courage to do it. I don't want to. I want to do something else. So that's just an example there. So the first thing I'd ask you to do is you ask yourself, why can't I? And the second thing I want you to ask yourself, if I can't, what do I need to do to make it happen? Who do I need to ask? How many questions do I need to ask? Why can't I? And what do I need to do to make it happen? We're all about improvement here, guys. We're all about improvement here. We're all about getting better. I don't want you just to come out clean and sober. I could bring a bunch of donkeys in here and do that. I want you to grow while you're here. I want you to find yourself while you're here. I want you to come out bigger and better. That's what I want. That's what I want. I want you to come out just clean and sober. You could have stayed at home and done that. I want you to be bigger. I want you to be better. I want you to be a better person because you have this disease. You guys have heard them. You've heard some of them been to AA meetings. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. Those people know what they're talking. They're grateful for what their disease is. The objective of the workshop: remove the mystery of the 12-step program. Explain and understand the philosophy of the 12-step program. Early in my career, when I was at the Institute of Psychiatry, I'd go to meetings. I'd end up group. Y'all go to meetings. Come back, tell me what it's about. Go to an AA meeting. I even had the schedule there in Charleston, James Island, Mount Pleasant. Here you go to meetings. And finally, this one dude came back one time, and I said, "Did you go to a meeting?" He said, "I sure did." And I said, "How was it?" He said, "I don't know." "Well, how was it supposed to be?" And I said, "Damn, that's my fault. That's my fault. I never thought to tell them, this is what you're supposed to get there. This is the attitude you're supposed to bring in. This is how it will help you. These are the benefits you get from it." That was my fault. I felt so small and so stupid at that time. I swore I'd never make that mistake again. So that's what we're trying to do. Explain and understand the philosophy of the 12-step program. Introduction of the principles in each step and how they apply in recovery. Understanding that the principles foster character change, the engine of recovery. Character change. Character change. You will hear that over and over and over and over again. Identifying character defects and become willing to remove them. Where am I there? Identify and willing. That's going to be an answer to a question tomorrow, by the way. Identifying character defects and become willing to remove them. Guys, if you really want to know in a very broad way, that's the program right there. That one sentence. Identify my character defects. And what do I have to do to remove them? And a lot of times to remove them, you're going to have to ask yourself, why are they even there? Why did I have them? Definition of terms and concepts, which we're going to get to, and introduce the promises and inspire you to seek them as a new way of living. When I told you guys that I went in arrogant and mean, and I'm probably going to say a bad word here, so I hope they're not recording this, but I did. I went in nasty, and with my what on my shoulders. And my first day there, you take your suitcase in, and like the RAs, what we call them RAs, I think they were called RAs at the time. Nice young man. He takes my suitcase in, puts it on the bed. Of course, he's going through my suitcase for contraband and everything, which he's supposed to do. And I understood that. And I looked over the pillow, and there was a big book sitting on top of my pillow. And I looked at that guy. I said, "What's that book?" He said, "That's the big book." And I said, I can see that asshole, but what is it? I had no idea the damn thing was called a big book. And so he politely explained to me what the big book was and how it was. He said, you're supposed to read it. I read that thing the first week I was there. I read it from cover to cover. And when I put it down, the only thing I could remember, the only thing that attracted me, the only thing that gave me any kind of spark was when I read the promises. Because those promises have words like pride and integrity and freedom and serenity. And my God, did I want that. I'd never had that in my life. Serenity, if I had 15 seconds of serenity in my entire life, I didn't know where it was. I couldn't tell you what it was. So again, with looking at the promises and how to live them. And there are a lot of groups out there call themselves the promises groups. And so introduce them, inspire you to a new way of looking at it. Okay. And by the way, word got to the nurse's station how rude I had been to that guy. And detox back then was a needle about this long, full of phenobarbital, and they bent you over the bed and they hammered that thing. I paid for that when that nurse came into bed with that needle, I can tell you that. I thought I had been shot. That woman told me to drop my drawers and bend over that bed. She hit me with that needle, and I came up about that high. I turned around and looked at her, and I said, what did you just do? And she just laughed going out the room. I slept for a day and a half. And that was my detox. I woke up hungry. God, I wanted something to eat. Okay, definitions. You got to know them. I'm going to ask you, if you don't know the fundamentals, we're not going to know what we're doing. Recovery. What is the definition of recovery? Making changes. Yes, it's that simple. If you're not making changes, you're not in recovery. And when I talk about making changes, I'm not talking about OB for places and things. I'm talking about changes up here, changes here, changes in where you live. Your entire belief system needs to be examined while you're here. And I'm not talking, when I say belief, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about your belief about yourself, the world, and the people in it. What drives you? What defines you? Where am I? We talk about OB places thing. Let me tell you something. When you find yourself in those places, you need to get out of there. Well, there's some places up here. When you find yourself, you better get out of there. And those need to be changes. We're going to talk about change. So again, that's something you're going to hear over and over again. Relapse. Relapse is a return to old behaviors. Actual drug alcohol use is the last thing to happen in the relapse process. Now let's make sure we make sure we understand that behaviors. And I'll do this very quickly. Here's some psychology that you guys will learn. All mental disorders have signs and symptoms that show you that you're in that mental disorder. For instance, depression. How do you know somebody's in depression? A listless attitude. They don't have an appetite. Nothing's fun. No energy. Sleeping all day. Can't get out of bed. That's depression. Schizophrenia. You're pushing a grocery cart down the street naked, getting messages from a dog telling you how to take over the world. Those kind of things. You're the Unabomber or something like that. OCD. You're washing your hands 25, 30, 40 times a day, changing clothes like that. How do you know? You see that. You can see. You can't x-ray that stuff. You can't take a CAT scan for that stuff. You can't draw a blood tissue sample for that. Did I tell y'all that my dog died? Well, it's kind of sad. But I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if he was dead. So I took him to the vet, and I propped him up on the table, and the vet poked and prodded and lifted his legs and his muzzle up and everything. And he said, well, I think your dog's dead, but I got one more test. And he had an old alley cat, old mangy-ass alley cat in a cage behind him. So he reached in and got that cat, and he rubbed that cat all over my dog's face, and he didn't even open his eyes. He said, well, your dog's definitely dead. So I'm going out to the vet, and I said, well, how much I asked the person, the receptionist, how much do I owe you? And she said, $175. And I said, you're charging me $175 to tell me that my dog is dead. She said, oh no, Mr. Wood, it's $25 for the visit. It's $150 for the CAT scan. All right, back to what you're paying me for. All right. So how do you know somebody's in any of these mental disorders? By their behaviors. That's the only way to know. You can't, like I said, you can't draw blood and anything like that. So how do you know? So we give you some kind of intervention or some kind of pills or medicine or something. How do we know that's working? What's the only way we know that's working? Jesus. Behaviors? Is that a hard question? The only way you're going to know it's working is change behaviors. Change behaviors. May I refer you back to number one, making changes. The only way you can know that your depressive meds are working if the depression lifts and there's change behaviors. Same thing, guys. I'm not asking hard questions here. Y'all can jump in anytime you want to. So, what is a relapse? Relapse is a return to what? All behaviors. The only way you're going to know that you're in your active addiction or alcoholism is by your behaviors. The only way you're going to know that you're pulling out and you're in this wonderful thing called recovery or remission is in your behaviors. So what are you always checking? How did I do today? How were my actions today? Did my actions reflect a changed person? Did my actions reflect a person of honor, of character? That's what you have to ask yourself. You don't talk this thing, you do it. You do it. Recovery is an action verb. You do it. And you don't try either. I'll try. That's crap too. You do it. If you screw it up, you ask somebody to give you some help. So the last thing that happens is in the relapse process is actual drug use or drinking. So what are you checking every day? How are my behaviors? Let me tell you, when you get home, I can tell you that's what they're checking. They don't care how much you know. They don't give a bean about how much you know. They just want to know what you're doing, how you're doing. Okay. So spirituality, very important. This is called a spiritual disease. It's called a spiritual cure. Okay, so maybe we need to know what's the definition of spirituality? Well, there's thousands of ways to define spirituality. In a lot of cases, spirituality can't even be defined. But for our purposes, for what we're trying to achieve here, let's look at spirituality this way. Your spirituality is measured in how you treat other people. You want to give yourself a quick little quiz. What is the level and the depth and the measure of my spirituality? How do I treat other people? Do I lie to them? Do I judge them? Do I treat them with respect? Do I manipulate them? Do I use them? How do I treat other people? See, our disease prohibits us from treating other people with dignity and respect. And you know why? You know why? Because it's all about me. It turns us so inside and so inward, we couldn't care less how we treat other people. Just give me mine. Just give me mine. What's mine's mine, and what's yours is mine too. We run over them. We destroy their boundaries. We steal their property, material and emotionally and physically, and that's what we do. So that's why we get so diseased. We have lost the ability to treat other people the way they should be treated. This is what we get back. Think about that, guys. This is a chance for you to redeem yourself with people that you love. You can now learn to treat them with all the dignity, honor, and respect that they deserve. What is a principle? We talk about principles all the time. You've got a list there, the 17 principles behind the steps. We're going to look at them tonight. Well, a principle is a fundamental truth that serves as a guide for behaviors, and when practiced, honor the person exhibiting them. Honor the person exhibiting them. Guys, principles have been around forever. They're universal laws, universal truths. We're just asked to step in and maybe be a part of what they are, make them a part of us. Principles, they can't be manipulated. They're not a variable. You can't do anything but either is or you ain't. Spiritual awakening, and I mentioned that in the 12th step. If you look at your 12th step, you can look over there or on your sheet. The spiritual awakening. Now here's why this is important. Our 12th step says, having had a spiritual experience or spiritual awakening as a result of working the 11 steps. Now, I'm not real smart, but that tells me that if I do the other 11 steps, I'm going to have this thing called a spiritual awakening. What is that? Well, if you look on page 569 or 567 of your big book, depending on the edition, he says it very clearly. A personality change or a change of character sufficient to bring on recovery. So, if recovery is making changes, what are we changing? Ourselves. We're changing ourselves. We're changing mama, daddy? No, we're changing ourselves. We're changing ourselves. And the damn thing you can do, there are bad guys in your life. I will agree with that. In some cases, there are some evil people in your life. I got that too, but you can't do anything about them. You can only change yourself. Therapy is not, let me give you a little therapy hint here. Therapy is not about changing what happened to you. That can't be done. That's history. That's carved in stone. That's the past. Therapy is about changing the person that it happened to. And that's you. And that's you. Okay. Defining the nature of the 12-step program. This is not a program designed to show anyone how to stop drinking and drugging. You've already done that. This program is designed to help you discover yourself as a man or woman of strong spiritual strong principal character, result of practicing worthy character attributes. Hear me and hear me again. Challenge. If your recovery does not change you, if your recovery does not elevate you, if your recovery does not raise you to the bar of life, I don't know if you know it, I don't know if you want it, I don't care. But when you came through the front door of this place, the bar in your life was raised significantly. And that bar is called life. We're asking you to learn how to live life on life's terms by using these characteristics we're going to talk about for the next 3 nights. You have been challenged. The bar in your life has been raised. If your recovery doesn't raise you to that bar, if your recovery doesn't make you a person of meaning, if your recovery doesn't make you a person of purpose, I got one simple question. What the hell are you doing here? What do you think's going to happen? What could you possibly want to happen if it doesn't change you, if it doesn't elevate you? I'll tell you how seriously I take this place, in places like this. I take this place and places like this so seriously, and I hope you do too, that what you do here, what happens to you here, what you learn here, the changes you make here, redirect the entire course of your life. And if you don't want the course of your life redirected, why did you come up this mountain? Those are questions, those are challenges. I ask you that. Guys, if it doesn't make you better, why would you even try it? Why would you not even go there? If I lose something, then I get it back, I've recovered it. You were born enough. Now, I know I just opened up a great philosophical debate there. You can bring in a bunch of smart people, a hell of a lot smarter than me. I'm not going to change my mind. I believe that every man and woman, with very rare exceptions, was born with everything they'll ever need to be anybody they ever wanted to be in terms of character. I'm not talking about career. In terms of character. We were born with the capacity to be honest. We were born with the capacity to be compassionate. We were born with the capacity to be caring. We were born with the capacity to be forgiven. Somehow, somewhere, all those wonderful attributes, all those principles, we lost. And that's your story. How you lost them, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't cool enough to be that way. Maybe tragically, some of you had it ripped out of you by very uncaring people. I don't know. But your job is to get it back. Your job is to get it back. That's why it's called recovery. You have lost the best of you. You have lost your true best self. We're asking you to get it back. How do you get it back? Practice these principles. Practice these principles. To my knowledge, my right arm is healthy. If I were to tie my right arm behind my back and keep it behind my back for, I don't know, 2 months, would that be long enough to atrophy my arm? Okay, so my arm would get diseased naturally. Why would it do that? I didn't use it. Again, these aren't hard questions. I didn't use it. So how would I get my arm back healthy? I would untie it and I would exercise it. I would use it. That's all it would take. Well, and hopefully that's all it would take. I get my health back by practicing what I have, practicing my arm. If I tie my spiritual nature behind my back for 20 years, if I tie my kindness, my respect, my forgiveness, my hope, my honesty back behind my back, and I don't use it for 20 years, what happens to it? It gets very sick. It gets very sick. It gets disease and it gets atrophy. And it makes us very sick. So how do I get it back? How do I do it? I untie my character and I use it and I practice it. That's why they're talking about in that 12 step. Practice these principles in all your affairs. All your affairs. That's how you get healthy again, guys. That's what we're trying to do here. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't overcomplicate it. This program moves you to a time and place where you can reclaim your natural spirit and birthright, in an arena where you can finally rediscover yourself. I saw this at a meeting in Birmingham, Alabama. We're sorry, but the express elevator recovery is broken. You have to use the steps. Write this down. I need to write this on this page. Bill Wilson says it very clearly. Half measures avail us nothing. Half measures ain't getting you squat. I'm losing my glasses. He says in the introduction to the steps, if you are what? Painstaking. I say that 99% equals 0%. What am I trying to say here? If you're not in this thing not 100% every day, every time, with all people, you're going to get your feelings hurt. You're going to go out there and get hit. You're going to get hit right in the mouth. By its very definition, our disease is stronger than we are. You're going to throw 99% at something that's already stronger than you? That just don't make no sense. So this is the point. One of the points I want to make, guys. This is a lifestyle. This is a lifestyle. Okay. The 17 principles and the 12 steps, and we're going to go through every one of those at length. Tonight we're going to look at honesty and acceptance and hope. And I gave some of you guys a challenge earlier. Why is it called the hope step? I'm interested to see if anybody ever did that. But principles, again, like I said, principles of fundamental truths. Those are fundamental. Every one of those was here long before we were. We're asked to join them. That's the universe. That's the laws of the universe right there. That's who makes us a person of principled character. Practicing. I will often use the analogy of the metaphor, if you will, of a doctor-patient relationship. Right now, just think of these. These things right here are your medicines that we're asking you to take every day when needed. Maybe even PRN. Maybe PRN. But that's the medicines. That's your prescription right there. Practice those things in all your affairs whenever you need to do that. So think about your medicines. Those of you who are pretty savvy about some of these things, think about what happens when you, let's say bipolar or something. What happens if you quit taking your meds? What happens? The disease comes back. The disorder comes back, doesn't it? I mean, is that a hard question? What happens when you quit doing that? Your disease is going to come back. Your disease is going to come back. Yes, that's how it is. Those are the truths. Does anybody have a cat? You got to get one of these things. A cat will climb. We've got 3 cats that will climb 15 feet of wall to get to that. It's not very. It's kind of cool. But it sure is fun. It's fun to watch. Okay. All right. The 12-step philosophy. It is a return or recovery of one's true best self by practicing at all times in all situations and with everyone. You don't get to pick and choose when you're a man or woman of character. You is or you ain't. Productive, regenerative, and healthy spiritual principles. This will get you back to kind of like a baseline of character. And Bill Wilson says it on page 85. What we really have is a daily reprieve from use contingent on the maintenance of one's spiritual condition, one's ability to practice that. That's all it's saying. That's all we have. Is every day we get 1 day by practicing that. I'm coming up on 28 years of recovery. I'm not of being in this thing. I'm not using that to brag. I'm using that as an example. For 28 years, almost 28 years, I should say, when I get up in the morning, I have had part of my prayers, my morning prayers, is one very strong request. And do y'all want to take a shot at what that is?
God keep me sober.
God keep me sober. My prayer is, that bed I just got out of, please let me get back in it tonight sober. I want to get back in my bed tonight sober. Now, I'm not trying to be the Pope. I'm not trying to be St. Francis. I'm not trying to have anything named after me. I'm not trying to have anybody say, oh, gee, look at him, isn't he a great guy? Now, I don't care if you want to know the truth. None of that, this really doesn't matter to me. But I want to get back in that bed tonight sober. Now, listen to this point, because I'm going to make a very important point here. I want to get back in my bed sober. Bill Wilson has told me, and I have found out, and I believe that's how I do that. By practice being that kind of person, by trying to do that every day, in all situations, with all people, in all affairs. Okay. Now, think about it, guys. Think about it. If you practice something long enough, ain't you going to get good at it eventually? If you practice something long enough, isn't that thing going to become a part of you? Here's what I want to show you, and this is what I want you to hear. This is why I say I want you to come out bigger, I want you to come out better. If you practice that stuff right there long enough, just so like me, you get back in bed sober every night, look what eventually, how you're going to turn into. One day you're going to quit practicing these steps, and one day you're going to be the steps. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. I don't have to lie anymore. I don't want to lie anymore. I don't want to manipulate. I don't want to do, although I understand what those words mean because I've studied them at length. You're going to get it tonight, tomorrow night, and Thursday night. That's what you do, guys. That's what you do. If you do something long enough, that's who you're going to become. And that's why you hear a lot of people say they're grateful recovering alcoholic, because what they've learned is that through the practice of these principles, that's what happens. That's what happens. So the 12-step philosophy. It is a call to the deepest feelings of oneself through, highlight this word, circle this word, tattoo it on your butt. Introspection, introspection, introspection. Where are my EC people? Have you heard the joke up there? Look within, look within, look within. I will buy you a steak dinner. I will buy you a lobster dinner. I will buy you a steak and a lobster dinner at your favorite restaurant anywhere on planet Earth. I will fly you there first class on a private plane. If you can find anywhere in those 12 steps, God knows what I just did. If you can find anywhere in those 12 steps where it says find somebody else's character defect and fix them. Every one of those steps is a call for you to seek and learn yourself. Look within, look within, look within. What is your response? What is your response? So introspection, introspection, introspection. Number 2, purpose and meaning of recovery, not abstinence. 3, it is never again asking yourself, do I take that drink or drug? The question now is, who do I want to be? I've never understood that question. You put a liquor bottle in front of me, or you put drugs in front of some, if you got a drug problem, and you say, boy, I wonder if I can take, do I take that? Let me ask you something. What in that question, is there anything in that question that's going to slow you down? Is there anything in that question that's going to stop you? It's a dumb question. I've never understood the question. Do I take? Of course you can take that drink or drug. I don't want you to ask that question because you're not digging deep enough. If it means something to you to be somebody of respect, if it means to you something to be respected, if it means something to you to be respected, then respect yourself. If it means something to you to be a man or woman of integrity and honor and honesty and code and morality, if any of those things mean something to you, you're going to have to give up every one of them before you take that next drink or drug. You're going to have to abandon your goals. You're going to have to abandon your principles. So here's the question. Here's the question the only question that I can think of that'll mean anything to you, that will pause you long enough to take a good, strong look at yourself. Faced with that drink or drug, urge, craving, temptation, whatever you want to do, here's what I want you to ask yourself. Who do I want to be? Do I want to be respected? Do I want to be trusted? Or do I want to be a drunk again? Do I want my wife to respect me? And I want my children to admire me. Or do I want to voluntarily make a decision to demean, devalue, and disgrace myself? Hide back in the shadows again. Take somebody I love, look them in the eye and tell them I love them, and then go out there all day long and prove that I don't. That's the question I want you to ask yourself. Who do I want to be? Do I want to rise to that bar that I've been asked to rise to? Or do I want to slink back down again? That's the question. And that's what this program demands that you ask yourself. So, there's no law that says that I have to like any situation I'm in. What I do have to like is myself while I am in it. And we're going to break here in a few minutes. So I know it's 7, but I got to get to a place first. Okay, the 12-step philosophy. It is in the practice of these spiritual principles that a more healthy and respectful character is molded. These new character attributes ease out the character defects that prohibited the presentation of the true best self. With that new and improved character comes self-respect, increased self-esteem, hope, confidence, inner peace, and emotional comfort. And wasn't that what you were looking for anyway? In almost any drug and every drink you ever took? Isn't that what you were looking for? That's what I was looking for. In every drink and drug, and I never found it. Never one time. I thought I did. It was a lie. It was an illusion. Carl Jung has a great quote. He says that alcoholism is the perfect metaphor for man's thirst for wholeness, man's thirst for completeness. I drank a lot of liquor trying to feel whole, trying to be complete. Never pulled it off. Never could do it. Okay, things to notice in these steps. The natural progression of spiritual growth. And this is a little bit, I want you to hear this. Think of the steps as a set of steps that you walk up. The first one is step 1, 2, 3. What you have to have is this progression. You have to have the principles of step 1 before you can get to step 2. You have to have 1 and 2 before you can get to 3. You have to have 1, 2, and 3 before you get to 4. Each one of these spiritual attributes, these principles that are built into these steps, set you up to get to the next one. That's one of the reasons why 8 and 9 are so far down the list, because it takes a lot to get to where you're going to make your amends, and we're going to talk that. So that's the next thing. And then that's the first thing. And the next thing is introspection. Look within, look within, look within. The only thing that ever matters is your response to it. The power is always in the response. Keep the power. Never allow someone else to make you feel a way that you don't want to feel. And what is your response going to be based on? What is your response going to be based on?
Character.
Something that honors. Thank you. Something that honors you. Guys, write that down. Write that down. That's not light. That's not light. Please. Okay. I'm going to get to this. Yeah. I got a couple of pages and then we'll break. We feel that, okay. Now, it should be on page 12. The problem, step 1. We feel that the elimination of drinking is but a beginning. A lot of people think, well, like I did, all I got to do is put the bottle down and I'll be fixed. No, Bill Wilson says it very good. That's just the first page. That's just the porch. That's a beautiful mansion, but all you've done is stepped up on the porch there. That's just your ticket. You just bought your ticket to get into this journey by putting the bottle down. We feel that a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. Stopping drinking and drugging, but not making changes, and there's an asterisk there, creates what is called a dry drunk. You've heard that word all the time. They have stopped the use, but have not addressed what made the use so important in the first place. No wonder they're so miserable. If I'm drinking and drugging to get through some emotional issue, which most of you are, numbing some pain or trying to feel a way that I can't find a way to feel without the drinking and the drugging, and I stop drinking and drugging, and I haven't fixed that problem, or I haven't done something to resolve that problem, no wonder I'm so damn miserable. If you take a drunken horse thief and sober him up, what have you got? A sober horse thief. He's sober, but he's still stealing horses. Guys, you got to get to the problem, and I'm going to illustrate that here in another minute here. And again, you see with the definition of recovery, making changes. If you're not making changes, people say, well, I went to Waypoint, I went to Pavilion, I went to Fellowship Hall, I went to Betty Ford and all that, and I relapsed the day I got out of there. No, you didn't. You cannot relapse until you're in recovery, and you're not in recovery until you're making changes. You might have some clean time in those places, but if you're not making changes, you're not in recovery. And that's what you guys need to be doing here. Identify the changes that need to be made and willing to make those changes. If you're not doing that, you're spinning your wheels here. You're going to get hit in the mouth when you go out there. And trust me, you're going to say, oh, damn, I did everything I could. Damn, I went to 3 meetings last year. Damn. Not my fault. I didn't get anything out of that place. The problem, physical allergy. In this case, let's talk about the addiction, physical allergy. Guys, that's only 15% of the problem. I got that. We know that. You didn't get here because you're on a window street. Something happened to get you here, and it has to do with drinking and drugging. Or by law, you couldn't be in a place like this. So we know that if all you spend is your time on that, we got that. And I will also tell you that in a lot of cases, your drinking and drugging ain't the problem. That's the answer. It's what you use for the answer for what is the real problem. And let's go down to that. The mental obsession, 85% of the problem. Obsession, an idea that overrides all other ideas, even valid information. It is truly a brain disease in that it blocks the brain's ability to make healthy decisions. And if you haven't seen that Pleasure Unwoven, I hope you do. It's a great, great video. And we don't make healthy decisions. Why don't we make healthy decisions? Because we're making decisions about drinking and drugging to keep that alive, to keep that lifestyle and that culture alive. That's why we're making it. So we're not making healthy decisions. And I'll get into more of that later because we're in a little bit of a time crunch now. But it's all about me. It's all about me. You know, it's all about me. I don't care about you. It's all about me. It's all about me. Yay, me. Go, me. Give me an M. Give me an E. What's that spell? Me. We all ought to have big cheerleader uniforms with a big M on there. Me. It's all about me. I'm cooler than I'm cool. Okay. Guys, I'd get you killed. That'll get you killed. Now, we're going to talk about that long and hard in step 3 about the reduction of the ego and why that's so important. So let's look at the iceberg analogy. 15% of the drinking and drugging that is causing marked personalities up there. That's what we can see. We know that. 85% of the problem is what's causing the drinking and drugging. It's the thinking that is causing the personality change. That's where your problem is. That's where your problem is. I go to the doctor and the doctor says, what you got there? And I said, well, I've got blood in my urine. Well, hell, we can see that. That's that. We can see that. What the doctor needs to do now is, oh, really? Why? What's causing that? That's where you got to go. You want to know what's sunk the Titanic? That part right there. And that's what's sinking you. If you're not going there in your individual sessions, if you're not going there in your group time, if you're not going there in your journaling, why? Wow, what are my character defects? Why do I do what I do? You're wasting your time here, guys. You're not going to get to the answer. That's where you got to go. I'm an old South Carolina boy. You know, Georgia calls itself the peach state and everything. There are more. Here's a little trivia for you. There are more peach trees in Spartanburg County than the entire state of Georgia, and that's a fact. And the peach tree growers, they have this wonderful saying. They say, "Bad fruits, bad roots." If the fruits of the peaches, if the peaches coming out rotten, bad, infected, diseased in some way, they don't spend a lot of time looking at those fruits. What do? They go down and they want to look at the tree, the roots of the tree, the base of the tree. What's wrong with the soil? What's happening that's producing the bad fruits? That's your job. Right now in your life, you're producing some pretty rotten peaches. Why? That's where you go. And remember, our serenity prayer says it very clearly. Give me what? The courage to change the things I can. And what's the definition of recovery? Making changes. Making changes. Okay. Okay. Now let's stop there. It is what, 8 something after? Please come, give 10 minutes. So let's at 18 after, and we'll start again. I promise you I don't want to go over 8 either. All right, so the problem was step 1. Let's go back. We should all be on page 15. The problem on step 1 is, this is a direct quote, the fact that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, and I'll tell you why that asterisk is there, have lost the power of choice and drink. We're powerless. He knew it even back then. Our so-called willpower became practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. In other words, we know what's getting ready to happen. We know we're going to make a fool out of ourselves, but we do it anyway because we're powerless. We're out. We are against. We have no defense against the first drink. And here's how we get that defense. He also says we have lost the ability to control our drinking. Really? Our whole trouble has been the misuse of willpower. Where has willpower been directed? Toward ourselves, me, serving only me. Bill wrote this to explain that asterisk in 1939. They didn't know back then what we know now scientifically about the disease model, but even back then he nailed it. He nailed it. That's pretty insightful. So the ego protects us from emotional harm. It doesn't like to be wounded in any way. So it creates shields that protect what's really going on. These shields present themselves as anger, resentment, victim stance, dishonesty, and many others. These shields put together form one huge master shield. And you know what that is? It's denial. It's denial. So why am I designed to feel pain? physically, physiologically, why am I designed to feel pain? If I put my hand on a hot stove, or if I got a toothache or something's going on, why am I designed to feel that pain? It is protect me. It is a signal. This ain't good. This is wrong. There's a problem here. Take your hand away. In a lot of ways, pain is God's gift. Pain not only tells you got a problem, it tells you where the problem is. Pay attention to your pain. Don't fear your pain. Don't fear it. Pay attention to it. It's giving you a message. All right. So if I'm also designed to feel pain emotionally. And if I deny that I am hurting inside, what is that called? It's called denial. So what is the biggest problem with denial? Which is a fancy clinical name for lying, by the way. What's the biggest problem with denial? Well, it is dishonest, and it corrodes us from within when we start doing that. How are you going to fix a problem if you're denying it even exists? Denial keeps the problem alive. Denial is your addiction's best friend. So we have to break through that denial. We have to break through that somehow, because it's keeping our disease alive. So how do we do that? So how do we protect that, get through that denial shield? How do we get to that 85% where really the problem is? How do I do that? Well, actually, the answer is right there in the question, H-O-W. Oh, crap. Honesty, openness, willingness. If you can incorporate, starting tonight, if you haven't already, into your character as a person. This isn't just a recovery skill. Again, this is a life skill. Here's a challenge. Challenge yourself to be as honest as you possibly can about your feelings. Don't say, I'm honest because I came in here and said I had a drinking, drugging problem. We know that. Why do you have that drinking, drugging problem? That's what I want you to be honest about. What are the feelings? What are the thoughts that are driving the feelings that are driving the behaviors? If you can be honest, if you can be open to changes, here are the changes. Here are what we recommend. If you read Bill Wilson, if you read the big book, he's answering letters. He's answering people's letters. How do I do that? He says, he'll read it how he writes it. Well, here's some of the suggestions. Here's some of the steps we took. If you want what we have, and he talks about openness, and then willingness. If you can incorporate H-O-W into your daily life, you're going to like where that takes you. You're going to learn a bunch of stuff about the world and the people in it. If you have decided that you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, and you're ready to take certain steps, the word willing or willingness is used over 58 times in the big book. That's not an accident. The any lengths mentioned here represent your willingness, and this is an answer to a question tomorrow night. Can you identify honestly and courageously your character defects or your denial shields, your resentments, your guilt, your shame, your fears, your insecurities, whatever it is that's driving your drinking and drugging? Can you identify that honestly and then be willing to change them? That's the bulk of the program. Identify and willing. And again, that's going to be one of the questions I ask you tomorrow night. And I've already gone over that. Okay. The problem, step one, still in the problem. And again, this is the only time we identify the problems in step one. This alcoholism addiction is often called a spiritual disease, and I've already talked about that in exercise, and I got a little bit ahead of ourselves. Go down to the next one. The principles that we're asked to practice in all our affairs in step one are honesty and acceptance. Let's look at it. The first part, honesty. We admitted that we're powerless over our addiction. Bam. That shatters denial, breaks through the lying. I now am saying out loud, yes, I am powerless, 100% powerless over my addiction. I'm not a powerless person. You're very powerful people. But I'm powerless over my addiction. And the second part of that, and I am willing to accept the fact that while I am in it, my life is unmanageable. I'm going to be truthful about that. Honesty and acceptance. Those are the principles in the first step that redirect and change the course of your life And then that you're asked to practice in all your affairs. Again, let's go back over the honesty thing. I'm not talking about what they call checkbook honesty or cash register honesty, like you're not going to steal my money or my wallet or anything. I'm not talking about that kind of honesty. I'm not talking about the kind of honesty where you sit there, yo, I was an All-American at Notre Dame in Southern Cal in the first year. You know, I'm not talking about that kind of lying. I'm talking about the kind of lying that says, oh, how you feeling today? How you feeling today, Yvette? Oh, I'm fine. I'm doing fine. And she's dying inside. That's dishonest, and that'll get her killed. If you need help, you ask for it. And that's step 2, by the way, when we get there. So that's the kind of what we're talking about. Page 58 again. Honesty is mentioned 3 times in the very first paragraph. You reckon they think it's important? He talks about those who can't follow this program, those who are incapable of being honest with themselves, incapable of developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty, establishing an honest, honorable, integrity-driven lifestyle. Many do recover if they had what? The capacity to be honest. That's why the first step is called the honesty step. Honesty, if used, will stop the next drink of drug. What's the biggest lie any alcoholic and addict can ever tell themselves? And we've already been through that. I don't have a problem. Honesty is the foundation the entire program rests on. Think about it. How you going to get to step 2? How are you going to get to the second part of step 1 if you're not going to be honest? So the whole thing starts with honesty. What's my motives? What's my agenda? Always check your motives. Always check your motives. Why? Okay. Let's go over that because this is important. First of all, it breaks impulsivity. Impulsive action, if you're impulsive, you're going to pick up the drug. If you're impulsive in your thinking, you're going to act in a way that you don't want to act. So the recovery brain has to always tell the addicted brain, wait a minute, is that a good idea? Is that what we need to do here? That we need to do. That gets us away from that all about me thing. All right, so that's one. A second reason we need to always check our motives is, quite frankly, why our addiction and our alcoholism really goes to a part of the brain. Hear me on this. It goes to a part of what's the number 1 instinct to a human being? Stay alive, survival. Alcoholism and addiction goes to the same part of the brain where the survival instinct is. Now that's a long lecture. I'm not going there. Trust me on this. The alcoholism and addiction goes to the same place where the survival instinct is because it's all based on the reward system. Okay, again, another long lecture I can't go into tonight. Just trust me on that. So what happens? The brain equates your alcohol and drug use with survival. So what do you think the decisions are going to be based on? Survival. And some of these decisions are going to be based on drinking and drugging again. So that's another thing. And the other thing is, you know what? And I don't want to say this to hurt anybody's feelings, but I was there and we all been there. You know, some of us just ain't that good at that honesty thing yet. Some of us just ain't that good at it yet. We might lie and not mean to. We might have the best motives in the world and not realize that they're not the best motives in the world. So always check your motives, check your agenda. Why am I doing something? Because we're just not there yet. You're just not there yet. If what I'm about to say is do or say good or bad for my recovery, what's the highest road I can take? If you challenge your principles and you challenge your honor, you can't go wrong. The second principle of the step is step 1 is acceptance. You want to know how powerful the use of acceptance is? Listen to the doctor's story on page 417. And this is just the first paragraph. And acceptance, listen to this, is the answer to all my problems. How about that? How powerful is that? Acceptance is the answer to all my problems. When I'm disturbed, it's because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it's supposed to be at this moment. How powerful is that? We did a lecture today on balancing, stay in balance. The best balancing tool I know of is acceptance. Just let it go. It is what it is. Don't worry about it. And if you can't accept it, change it. If you can't change it, accept it. It's just that simple. It's the answer to all my problems. My first sponsor was Irish, an Irishman, a hard-headed, first-generation right off the boat Irish guy down in Delray Beach. I loved him. But man, was that guy hard-headed. He was a step Nazi. He drove me through those steps. He pounded me in those steps. He gave me I already had my big book, by the way, because it was on the pillow when I walked in. But he gave me my first 12 and 12 steps and 12 traditions. He told me to read them, understand it. He had a rule, and I broke the rule, and I heard all about it. He said when we went to AA meetings, if it didn't come out of the big book, if it didn't come out of 12 and 12, he didn't want to hear about it. If you're going to quote the Bible, go to church. And this was a very devout Catholic. But when he went to AA, it was strictly, he was AA all the time and everything like that. And of course, I violated it, and he chewed me out for it. And he told me over and over and over and over again, and I'm not going to try to speak Irish, but he said, Oren, the answers are always in the steps. 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 Read your big book. Read your 12 and 12. You'll find the answer. You find the answer. 27 years later, that man has not been wrong. And I'll tell you right now, most of the time, you know where the answer is? Right there. Just let it go. It is what it is. What page are we on? 22? Okay. So that's pretty powerful stuff. It might be the most quoted part of the big book. So again, in the problem step 1, let's look at acceptance. Well, let's look at the definition of acceptance. You're like, this pretty simple. Even the people from Spartanburg can understand this one. What is, what ain't. It is what it is, it ain't what it ain't. Period. A wise acknowledgement of the facts. How about that? Some people say acceptance is, and I've never really understood this. Acceptance is punking out. You know, I'm punking out. I'm giving up. That ain't acceptance at all. Acceptance means, okay, well, these are the facts. Good. Now I got the facts. And now what I do with them. I actually think acceptance is pretty wise. All right. So let's talk about this. Negative emotions bring on cravings. We talked about that this afternoon. Quality recovery demands balance. If the alcoholic and addict doesn't learn how to control their emotions will control them. I did not say not have any. I said learn to control them. If you don't, they will control you. So we have to learn how to handle it. The recovering alcoholic must learn to maintain, it is what you're praying for, your serenity prayer. What? Grant me serenity or balance or peace or calm. To do what? To accept the things I can't change. It is the attitude of acceptance that you're praying for. Attitude. I can accept this thing, higher power, but I need to accept it with peace. I don't need to be all bummed out about it. I still need to accept it with peace. All right, so let's look at what's the opposite of acceptance. Well, let's talk about that for a second, because that's what kills acceptance. The opposite of acceptance is why. Why? Why did they do that? Why didn't they do that? Why did they do that? Why didn't they do that? Why didn't they? Why? Okay, why is just a guaranteed stuck point. You will stay stuck. You will stay a victim. You will stay obsessed. You will not grow. You will not heal. You can't possibly grow and heal when you're stuck in that why. Why keeps you in the pain. All right, so let's look at why for a second. If you were to get these people that you're asking this why of, and in my case, and you hear about this later, most of them were dead. If I were to get these people, and I were to say, why did you do this or why didn't you do that? Do you know what answer I would probably get? Well, what answer would I get? I don't know. I just thought it was a cool thing to do at the time. I don't know why I did that. Okay, and here's the other thing I want you to ask yourself. If you got every answer to every why you ever had, would it change a damn thing? Get out of that why thing, guys. Accept it and move on. And here's the beautiful thing about it. While I'm doing why, I'm stuck in a problem. As soon as I'm accepting it, I'm stepping out into a platform where the solutions are. I'm stepping out into the sunlight. I'm stepping out into the light. Okay. Accept it for what it is, claim your life, and move on. Now, acceptance. Acceptance is the master stroke that moves you, and I just said that, from that stuck point into the arena of solutions. Here's a couple of quotes. It is what it is, so let it go. I can't change it, so I'll accept it for what it is, and I'll seek to change me, which is introspection. How about this one? Who cares? I think about that sometimes. Well, how sweet would my life have been, or how much trouble have I been in when I was a kid, when I could have just said, I don't care. I don't care. Who gives a shit? I wish I could have said that. No, I had to fight everything. I had to fight everything. Couldn't do that. Thanks for, people, Oren, you're the dumbest, stupidest, baddest counselor I've ever seen. Well, thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. I care. You know, this person thinks I'm hurt. He cares what I think about. No, I don't. No. You know, the only thing I don't ever want to hear somebody say about me again. Of all the hundreds of millions of things you can say about me, there ain't but one thing I don't ever want to hear again. And you might want to take a shot at what that is. Or you're drunk. I don't ever want to hear that. And let me tell you how beautiful this is. This is kind of getting away, but let me tell you how beautiful that is. Of all the hundreds of millions of things that I don't care about what people say about me, I got no control over. They can say, do what they want to. But the one thing that I don't ever want to hear again, I got total control over. That's sweet. That's a sweet place to be. Think about it that way. Think about it that way. And then, oh, I'm sorry, you must have me confused with somebody who gives them. My favorite Bill Wilson quote: "Honesty with ourselves and others got us sober, but it is tolerance and/or acceptance that keeps us that way." Now, we're a little bit of a time frame. Usually I throw this out there, but let me go ahead and tell you it anyway. Honesty, if you know anything about Bill Wilson, he was a denial king. He was the Tiger Woods of denial. He denied, and almost got him killed. So it wasn't until he got honest about his alcoholism that he was able to be sober. But what keeps him sober? Acceptance. It is what it is. Let it go. Let it go. And if you really know deep down in some of it, maybe one day I'll tell you a little bit about his story. Bill Wilson had a lot to let go of. He took some hits. That guy took a lot of hits when he was young, and it drove a lot of his drinking and his personality. And he had a lot to have to accept. Okay, so wrapping up step one. I must get to the point where I can honestly admit that I have a very real impression. Y'all gonna like this because I'm a very smart person wrote this. I must get to the point where I can honestly admit that I have a very real and present problem with alcohol or drug use. I may even have an addiction to them. And when I do use, no matter how much I think I'm controlling things, I must accept the truth that my life is totally unmanageable and will be as long as I use. So there must be some changes, and those changes have to be within, because that's really where the problem is. I have to once again embrace and practice values or principles, values that will restore me back to my health. I have to learn to ask for help. We're going to get that in step two with my problems, because my way sure ain't working. But what are those values, and who do I ask, and will any of this stuff really work? Well, who do I ask, and will it really work? Well, let's go to the solution. Let's step right into step two. Now, I challenge some of y'all to tell me why is step two called the hope step? Did anybody even look at that? What does step one say? In not very pleasant, not very nice words. I'm powerless over my addiction, and I'm unmanageable. My life is unmanageable. Let's say that, let's go back to the medical model, an analogy that I'm using. Let's say I'm your doctor. You come in, I've done all the tests, I've done taken all the results, I've done all I've done can do, and I say, Mrs. Smith, you have a disease that you're totally powerless over, and oh, by the way, because you have that disease, your life is going to be unmanageable. How do you feel about that? Well, that sucks, doesn't it? I don't like that. There's a lot of despair written in there and everything. But I say, hold on, wait a minute. There is, I want you to believe that there is something out there that can restore you back to your health. Now, how do you feel?
You got hope.
You got hope. And that's why it's called the hope step. And hope is something we have to have. And we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about hope in detail. Hope is something you have to have. The alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink. Neither he or any other human can provide such defense. His defense must come from a higher power. Let's define higher power. Bill Wilson stole it right out of the Oxford group. Higher power, the original definition of a higher power. Anything, anybody, anything that can help you do what you cannot do by yourself is at that time your higher power. My dentist is my higher power because I can't do that by myself. So my mechanic when I take the car is my higher power. Anything, can higher power be my God? Of course it can, but it doesn't always have to be. When you guys get together in a group, that's a higher power. Collectively, you guys are much more powerful than you were individually. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who honestly seek him. To us, the realm of the Spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never to be forbidden. It is open, we believe, to all men. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? It doesn't just end with me. I'm not the Alpha. I'm not the Omega. I'm not the thing. Of course I'm not. So something has to make. Anytime I ask somebody for help, I get stronger because they're going to give me help. He can choose any conception he likes. Listen to this. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in any power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. Ask for help. Be a man or woman of character. This pulls you out of isolation. This helps you with fellowship. The second step does not tell you what you have to do, where you have to go to do it, who you have to ask, when or how long it'll take. The second step really says, with crystal clear clarity, there is. There is. Come to believe it. Come to believe it, that there is a power greater than yourself that can return you back to your true best self. When you actually believe that there are powers out there that are stronger than your disease and that those powers can restore you, well, that breeds hope. Now, here's the time where I tell a couple of some of my stories. When I got in graduate school in 1995, the last time I had set foot in a school or college or university library was in 1974. Y'all remember the Dewey Decimal System? Yeah. Big old card catalog. Some of you younger people may not know what I'm talking about. If you wanted to research something, you went in there, and right in the middle of the library was these drawers full of these cards. You either looked up the subject or you looked up the author, and that's how you found out where the stuff was. So my first class is abnormal psychology. And we literally had to draw mental disorders out of a hat, and for the semester we had to write a very, very extensive typewritten American psychiatric style research paper, about 25 pages, not including the references and all that, on this disorder. Well, I drew out conduct disorder in kids. Well, hell, I don't even like kids. And so my paper would have been, well, you got a kid that's acting up, beat the hell out of him. I don't know. That's what they did to me. And so I got to come on this paper. All right, so, okay. So I pop into the library there at the Citadel, and I'm looking for my catalog system. What do I see rows and rows of? Computers. I didn't know how to turn a computer on. I had never in my life sat in front of one, to my knowledge. And here I am. And I'm sitting there, and I'm going, I want to get a graduate degree. I'm going to have to write papers for the next 3 years, and I got to research in this thing called a computer. Somewhere in that damn box is all this information. How do I do this? And I will tell you, I had tears in my eyes because I thought, well, my dream, this ends my dream. But it didn't, because I work a program. And I went to the front desk and I introduced myself, and I said, you guys are going to ask 2 questions. First, you're going to ask, where the hell did I come from? And second of all, you're going to ask, how the hell did this guy get in the graduate program? But here's my dilemma, and I told it to her. And this nice young female cadet, she goes, well, I'll help you, Mr. Wood. I said, I don't know if you know what you're getting into. You got to act like I just fell off the moon. I mean, you got to take me to page 1. Like, how do you turn the thing on? That's where I had to go to. Well, I told you how I ended up with honor student, honor graduate, and everything. Guys, that's working your program. That's working your program. You got a dream. You got something that need to be done. You want something to get done, and you can't do it, you ask. Yes, get off this macho thing. That's what gets you killed. That's that pride thing. If you got pride, how about this pride? Pride will get you killed. The Greeks write a lot of stuff about that. They call it hubris. But how about the other, because there's another side to pride. How about the pride that says, I can be bigger. I can be better. This isn't who I am. I don't want to be this way. My pride is, instead of pulling me back, it's going to elevate me. It's going to lift me. It's going to motivate me. It's going to be an engine for me. Why don't you use that kind of pride? So that's a lot of what step 2 is. And that's a true story. And it gave me, and that night, I can't, well, not that night, because I was still pretty damn sick. But not long after that, and I even got to the point where I walked in the library and 2 or 3 of them would volunteer. I want him tonight, I want him tonight, because it was kind of a game to them. They could go home and say, you know, that dumb son of a bitch. But anyway, it worked out very well. And I got so much hope. That gave me so much hope. So, I'm on the right page. Okay, let your hope shape your futures, not your hurts. When the world shouts, I love this quote. When the world shouts, quit, give up, you can't do it, it's impossible. Hope whispers, try one more time. Some of you people are going to try to go back and maybe go back to school. Maybe some of you will get out and want to go back and complete your degree, your education. What is your disease going to tell you? You can't do that. You're stupid. You're a dumbass. What are you screwed it up? You're going to screw it up now. How are you going to take that? What are you going to do? Hope. Some of you are going to want to go back, maybe mend relationships. What's your disease going to say? They don't want you. They don't want you. They don't want anything to do with you. You're a failure. You're a black sheep. You're the worst of the worst. What's hope going to say? Keep trying. Keep trying one more time. Some of you might want to just jump on some careers. What is your hope? What is your disease? You can't pull it off. Hope says, try again one more time. I love that quote. Fairy tales don't exist so we can fear the dragon. Actually, that's the reason why they did fairy tales, to give the little kids hope in a scary world, that the dragon can be slain. That's actually the reason why there are fairy tales. And does anybody know Latin here? E pluribus domus. Well, whatever Latin is, while I can breathe, I can hope. That's the state motto of South Carolina. All right. So let's talk about this nature of hope. And then we're going to tell some stories and we get out of here. Understand the nature of hope. The hope that you're using in step 2 is not the typical kind of hope you may be used to or you may be thinking about. It is not the kind of hope that you think of when you say, I hope I win the Powerball, or that I hope my team wins the game. That kind of hope is passive. I go buy my ticket, I get out, there's nothing else I can do about it. I can't pull the numbers, there's nothing I can do about that. I can go to the football game, I can sit there and I can pull like hell for my team, but there's nothing I can do about that. I damn sure can't get out there and block and tackle and all that stuff, because I would last about a half a nanosecond. But I can't do that. That's passive hope. You don't want that kind of hope. We're going to talk about a different kind of hope. You watch the game with no power to make your hope for victory come true. You buy the ticket and then walk out. If it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't. You've got no say in it. You have no control or power of that kind of hope. Now, what did I say I wanted you guys to do? I wanted you guys to make this stay here such a serious endeavor that it redirects the entire course of your life. If you got that kind of silly passive hope for the rest of the course of your life, I don't think that's very powerful. That's not going to make you very powerful. Let's look at the true nature of hope, the kind of hope we're talking about. No, this kind of hope is different. I'm going to read it slow, and I want you to I really want you to take in. This is a challenge. This is the hope that what you're hoping for is so right, so good, so honorable and just, so sacred and holy, so pure and precious, so noble and so steeped in valor that you will do everything possible. You will do everything possible to make it happen. That's the kind of hope that has a heart and a soul. That's the kind of hope that has legs so powerful that it will go to any lengths, endure any pain, overcome any fears, and carry you to where you hope and deserve to be. This kind of hope has the power to move you from the darkness of your personal hell to the brilliance of your heavenly future. That's the kind of hope that will change you. That's the kind of hope you must generate and believe in. And when you do, that's the kind of hope the angels will bless. And don't doubt me on that. Because the angels want what you want. And if you have the kind of hope that what you're hoping for is so pure and precious and good and right that you'll do anything to make it happen, you will never be alone again. That will be blessed. All right. Take a minute, get comfortable, and let me tell you a story that I've been given permission to tell. And it talks about the kind of hope. I'm trying to make it I'll try to do it right. I told you guys that I I was doing a lot of talking back then. I got asked to come to meetings, and people wanted me to speak in their meetings and stuff. And people talking about, you know, where you counsel and all this. I met a woman down there in South Florida, an amazing woman in her sobriety. She had horrible drinking and drugging problem, and she was just an amazing, beautiful person. And she was an alumni of this facility down there. South Florida's got them like 7-Elevens. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. And she was an alumni of this fairly large male and female facility down there. And they were having some kind of banquet or get together to do. And they wanted a male speaker and a female speaker. And she asked me to be the male speaker, and they were going to have a female speaker there. And would I come and speak at their function, which turned out actually to be fairly large. Now, would I come and talk? Would I come? Is a bean green? Of course I'm going to come and talk. Who don't want to listen to me? Because I know everything. I know all that. You know, I got it all. And plus I was going to get a free supper, and I was living by myself, and that was always good. So I go, and we're sitting up on the kind of like the head table there and everything. And the female was a middle, maybe late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, young woman there. And she, very petite, very mild woman. How you doing? Everything. And I thought, man, this is, and they were going to let me speak first. That was a big mistake. I mean, she had to follow me. You know, that's like following the Beatles. How do you kids? You know, you don't ask somebody to follow me. So I got up there and I did my thing. And as you can imagine, I had them rolling up and down the aisles and jumping up and down, clacking, talking in tongues, and you know, just foaming at the mouth and hallelujah and all this shit and everything. And as I thought, and this girl's name was Lisa. And Lisa gave me permission to tell the story, and I'd like to tell Lisa's story, and I'll tell you what she did for all of us that night. Lisa had an accounting business down in South Florida, West Palm Beach, a very, very successful, lucrative accounting business. She took care of a lot of businesses. She was very smart at what she did. She had a very big firm. She had all the bling that went with South Florida at the time. She had a house on the Intercoastal Waterway, which back then was $1 million just to get on the list. And she had all that. Lisa was a very attractive young lady. And she did the party scene, and it started with cocaine, and then it got into the powder cocaine, and went long before she was injecting cocaine. And in less than 2 years, Lisa went from her very, very successful business with all the money and prestige and all that went with it, to where Lisa was actually working the streets of South Miami, knocking on car windows and prostituting. Now, let me tell you something. That's not a good career path. You don't last long down there in that. And that's where she ended up. And Lisa's father was a truck driver. And he literally took these posters, and he had her picture on there, and he went around Miami and South Florida, and he had these on telephone poles. Do you know Lisa? Call this telephone number. Well, somebody knew her and called numbers, told her father, I have to tell you exactly where you find your daughter. And he did. And when he picked her up, and he took her back home, and he gave her a day or two to get cleaned up. And while she was cleaning up and resting and trying to, you know, get where she could breathe again, he got her an interview for this facility where we were doing the talk. And Lisa's father owned guns. And Lisa's father taught her how to operate a gun. And she knew how to load one, and she knew how to use it. She used it for target practice. And she knew exactly where the gun was, and she knew where the bullets were. And she said that she, in her incredible levels of shame and guilt, and just how things turned out, that she, out of consideration for her father, she would go talk to these people, but she was going to walk out, and that was going to be her last day on earth. And she was convinced of it. And she told us she was fairly calm with that decision. So she went to this place, and she said she was sitting there, and the woman was interviewing her, talking to her like all of y'all did in admissions. And she said the woman gave her an odd look. And she said the woman put her pencil down or her pen down, and she took her glasses off and put them down. And she said, Lisa, I want to ask you something. Do you have hope that you can come out on the other side of where you are? And Lisa said, I took a long look at that woman. She said, I wasn't going to lie on my last day on earth. And she said, no, ma'am, I don't have any hope at all. And she said that woman reached over and just kind of patted her hand and said, well, I do. I have hope for you. And until you get to where you can generate and use your hope, you can use mine. Now, what did that take? 7 seconds, 8 seconds? It saved Lisa's life. Don't doubt the power of hope. Don't you dare doubt the power of hope. A lot of us in this room lost it, and it took us to dark places. You know it. Simply because you lost hope. You can't do that ever again. And if you do, and if you think you are losing that hope, and it might happen because our disease is cunning, baffling, and very, very powerful. If it does start happening for you, you go to the rooms because the men and women in those rooms have hope for you. They've got plenty hope for you. In fact, that's the obligation of the men and women in there to do what? To offer their what? Experience, strength, and hope. That's why they do that. So you cannot at any cost give up hope. You can't allow that to happen. And if it's starting to slip, and it just may, you go to where there's plenty of hope. That's a true story. So where do you find that hope? You find it in the rooms. You find it you see it in the joy and confidence of men and women there. You see it in their faces and you hear it in their stories. That was the first attraction to AA with me, was I saw the men and women's faces there. I saw hope. I saw joy. I saw confidence. I saw laughter. I had lost all of that. I wanted that desperately. You feel it in your heart when hope has released you from the overwhelming weight that kept your head down in shame. Shame. I contend that most alcoholism addiction is shame-based. We work through that shame. You come out on the other side of that shame. You feel it when hope unleashes the unstoppable surge of yes, I can, and sweeps away the walls of it will never be. You know it when you hear different messages from friends and loved ones. I'm so proud of you. You will hear that. I knew you could do it. You will hear that. Please come join us. I have so much respect for what you're doing. You will hear that. Last story of the night, I'll make this quick. I grew up and I have a friend who I literally played in the sandbox with. We are lifelong friends. I was in his weddings. He was in my weddings. Don't ask. When his mom and daddy died, I rode in the hearse with his family. When my parents died, he never rode in the hearse with us. He is a brother. I love this man as much as I can possibly love. We are exactly to the day 1 month apart in age. And I love this man dearly. And he's just, I think I made that point. Okay, my parents died early. And I'm not going to say that my friend's parents became my parents or his father became like my father, but I got a lot closer to his father as a result of that. And I really, really liked his father. And I envied the relationship my friend had with his father because I would watch them actually sit down and talk. When we were in high school, my friend actually would sit down at a table or out in the yard and talk to his father. I never could do that with my dad. That just wasn't something that was available. Not that my dad was a bad man. You just didn't do that in my father's work. You worked your own problems out. And I thought, man, how sweet is that? And his father's just a great man, just a good man. And I love that man. And he truly treated me like a son. And we were very close. Okay. When I went into treatment, my friend, we got any Greensboro people here in that area? Nobody in that area? Okay. Well, there's a little town outside of Greensboro called Pofftown. I don't think everybody's ever heard of it. Anyway, that's where my friend lives. And about 100 yards maybe across a field was a house that my friend's parents grew up in. Especially, I'm not grew up in, we're living in. And for my first year out of treatment and everything, I kept a low profile. I really kept a low profile. I didn't go any places. I didn't go to football games. I didn't play in golf tournaments. I went to a lot of meetings because I knew I was still sick and I knew that I wasn't well physically. And so I kept things kind of on the low. And My friend would call me, come up, Daddy wants to see you, come up to Poptown, come up and visit. So after about a year of that, I wanted to see my friend. I wanted to go up and see him and his wife. So I went. And I mean, when I pulled in the driveway, here they come out, my friend and his wife, and we hugged and everything, and we cried. And I'd never been a year apart. My friend and I know it sounds like a love story, but we'd never been a year apart. And he said, Daddy wants to see you. In my heart, son. I said, oh, God, what's he going to think about me? What's he going to say? How bad have I disappointed him? How's he going to look at me? How's he going to, I said, oh, God, I didn't want to. And I said, and he said, no, let's go now. Daddy and Mom over there, they want to see you. That was a long walk, man. That was a long walk across that field. And then, because I had all these doubts, what is he going to think about me? What have I done? How much have I disappointed him? Who does he think I am now? And all this is just racing questions. And then I look up and we get like 60 yards from the house and the back door opens and here he comes. The back porch door opens and here he comes. And this man comes out and he walks up to me. You gotta give me a minute. He walks up to me and he takes me in this big hug and he whispers in my ear, welcome home, son. And my knees buckled. And he had to hold me up. And I thought, my God, what a gift, what a gift, what a gift, what a gift. And I think that's the first time in my life I ever truly understood love or felt that kind of love in my life. Why am I telling that story? Because that's available to you. That's available to you. Those people are out there. They want you back. That's all they do. They want you back. Guys, I've taken hundreds and hundreds of phone calls from mamas and daddies and husbands and wives and children, daughters and sons. And you know what every one of them said? You know what every one of them said? I want my daddy back. I want my wife back. I want my son back. I want my daughter back. That's all they want. What a gift you can give them. And what a gift that you give back. That day, that man gave me the most kind gift that I've ever been given in my life. Son, he called me son. Welcome home, son. And I was home. And that's what I want you guys to fight for. That's what's out there available for every one of y'all. And that should mean something to you. Or I think it means, if it doesn't, or you wouldn't be here. Welcome home, son. That's all they want back. They want you back. That's all they want you back. And what a gift was that day. Okay. Listen to y'all know who Shel Silverstein is? Shel Silverstein's a genius. If you got to read some of his, just read some of his stuff. Listen to the musts, child. Listen to the don'ts. Listen to the shouldn'ts, the impossibles. Then you listen to the won'ts. Listen to the never haves, the never wills, the it can't ever be's. Then you listen close to me. Anything can happen, child. Anything can be. And that's called hope. So tonight we looked at the first two steps. I hope I gave them to you in a way that you can use. I hope don't everybody bust out of here. I hope I have worked at demystifying the steps and tried to give you a little bit better idea what the philosophy is about and what it does for you. We're going to really jump into the steps tomorrow night with some more of my stupid stories. And I just want to make sure that you know what this is a life-changing. What you're holding in your hands and what we started talking about tonight can and should change your life. And I think that's why you came here. All right. Any questions? Any observations? Any suggestions? Any comments? Any rebuttals? Thank y'all for thank you for your patience and your respect. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
Thank you.